Hello and welcome to Navigating OCD, the podcast where we discuss all things OCD. I want to start off by saying I'm not a therapist or a medical professional, although one day I would like to be. I'm just someone sharing their personal experience with OCD and what they have learned so far through the recovery journey. Okay, so let's start the podcast. I can't lie. This is my first episode and I am a little bit nervous, even though as I'm recording this, none of you can hear it anyway. So I'm not quite sure where the logic is in that. But yeah, I just wanted to say that I am still on the recovery journey myself. Even though I'm quite far along it, I'm still on it myself, and OCD is a hard topic to talk about, as many of you will know, like whether it's the theme itself, the theme, if it involves other people, like family members, friends, partners. There's a lot of OCD can be a very touchy subject to talk about. So I wanted to make that clear as I started, because if I'm vague about certain aspects or if I don't go into detail right now about certain aspects, that's because I'm still on the journey myself, and as much as OCD is about pushing yourself out your comfort zone, doing this podcast alone is pushing me. So the topic itself, it might take me a few weeks, a few episodes to get into being more open about certain parts of my OCD journey. But I'm going to be as open as I feel comfortable with on this first episode. And I asked you guys what I should maybe talk about today on Instagram. And a lot of you, or most of you, said, let's just start off the first episode by talking about like my journey with OCD, how I found out I had OCD, how I've got to this point in recovery and that kind of thing. And I also agree that that's probably the best place to start. So yeah, I'll take you through my journey and how I got to where I am now. So I think my whole life I have probably had OCD. It's probably had, I'd say, mild a lot of the time, moderate, I think, in my 20s, in hindsight, and I'd have spells of more chronic, severe OCD, but they were kind of spells that would come and go, and I didn't know at the time that what I was experiencing was OCD. I just thought that I was a worrier. I was a really anxious person. I just kind of put it down to anxiety. And I didn't think it was anything more than that until my OCD became chronic. That was around 4 years ago now, maybe a little, around 4 years ago. I was going to say maybe a bit longer, but hey, it was around that time frame. And chronic OCD is a completely different monster. I didn't realise the level of pain, I've never felt the level of pain that chronic OCD causes. Chronic OCD it's not for the weak. It is really hard, and that's kind of what I was thrown into. I've spoken about this on my Instagram before, but mine kind of literally came on in a split second. I remember the exact moment my chronic OCD latched, the exact moment it hit. I was out for a meal. I was halfway through the meal and someone said something, my OCD latched, and that moment it hit me. At the time, once again, I didn't know it was OCD. I thought I was worrying, I was overthinking. And at that time in my life, actually, it was I was about to go traveling with my partner. We spent 3 months in Turkey, and this was a week before I went away. And now I know that OCD latches to like uncertainty and change, and these are the kind of times that it will show up. And now I can see in hindsight that going away. So at the time, we weren't going to just go for 3 months. It was going to be like, we didn't have a date when we was going to come back. We didn't know where we were going to go. We were literally just like packing a rucksack and going. But we were starting in Turkey because that's where my partner's family actually have a holiday villa out there. So we were going to start there and travel around Turkey and then see kind of where the wind took us at the time. So knowing what I know now, that's a perfect like scenario for OCD to not latch to, because it didn't latch to the scenario, but it's like the perfect recipe for a disaster with OCD, because OCD loves to latch to uncertainty, change in life, those kind of things. So yeah, I think that was probably one of the ingredients that led to my OCD kicking it up a notch at that time. But yeah, I'll jump backwards for a second. So my OCD latched a week before all of this was about to happen. And although it was there all the time, I didn't say anything to anyone. I was like, this will just go. I'm just going to go away anyway, and I'll deal with it. And when I go away, this will go. No, I was very, very, very wrong. I went away and it got a million times worse. I've never ever experienced anything like it. So I went away, and so it was just me and my partner, just me and my boyfriend. I didn't have my normal structure. I didn't have my normal routine. I didn't have friends. I didn't have family. And I think once again, I already had the uncertainty of what I was kind of like doing with my life. And then I had no structure, no routine, no distraction, no one other than my partner, obviously, but no one else to kind of talk to, go and do things with. And it just kicked it up, a notch. This time of my life was the worst period of my life. And in hindsight, I don't even know how I survived it. So for anyone, I should probably explain OCD a little bit. So if anyone doesn't know how OCD kind of will show up, I'll just talk about my experience. So it was there for me 24/7. There wasn't a second, there wasn't a nanosecond of the day that I wasn't experiencing intrusive thoughts, intrusive memories, intrusive feelings, intrusive images. And I was constantly in this cycle of trying to figure it out, trying to sort it out, trying to get to the bottom of it, trying to check, do all these things. And I didn't know that I didn't realise that they were part of the OCD cycle at the time. I thought everything I was experiencing was real. I had a very I lacked the distinction between my imagination and reality. But I didn't know that at the time. I thought everything I was experiencing was real. I was just trying to fix everything that was going on in my mind. And yeah, this went on for the whole time I was away, the whole 3 months. And I don't know how I did it. I wanted to just go home more than anything. But at the same time, I didn't want to ruin this experience for my partner. It was something I'd wanted to do for so long. So the fact that it was ruining it was also quite heartbreaking, even though in like the grand scheme of things, looking at it, It really, like, my health always comes first. But at the time, that was also something that was like important to me, so I didn't want to ruin that either. I stuck out the 3 months, and it was actually getting to Christmas, so we was like, we'll go home anyway. We'll go home for Christmas, and then we can decide what we want to do after Christmas. I knew that I wouldn't be coming back out. Knew I wouldn't be flying back out or traveling anymore. I knew that I needed to be home. I needed help, severely needed help. And my partner knew all this as well, by the way. I tried to keep it quiet at the start of our trip. I tried to not say anything, but probably a week in, maybe, I just had to tell him what I was experiencing. And he was trying to help me as much as he could. But at the time, because we didn't know that what I was experiencing was OCD, all the ways we were trying to help me was all the wrong ways. And it was only when I'd started Googling things that I started to have an idea that what I was experiencing was OCD. And when I got home, that is when I really started to do more research on it. And I started to have more of a belief that this could be what I was experiencing. But at the same time, if anyone, I was going to say if anyone listening has OCD, but I'm sure you do, OCD is the like one illness or disorder, however you want to label it, that makes you believe you don't have it. So as much as I was thinking, this could be what I'm experiencing, on the other hand, I was like, no, you're just a terrible person, and you're trying to use this as an excuse, which I know is something that probably a lot of you can relate to. So at this point, I had got home. I had lost so much weight. I think I lost about 2 stone. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't function. I was having panic. I'm not even saying I was having panic attacks. I feel like I was just in one constant panic attack from the moment I got up to the minute I got to sleep. If I did get to sleep, it was just, I didn't understand what had happened to my mind. I didn't understand what I was experiencing. But at the same time, I just thought I was terrible and that I deserved everything that I was experiencing, which, once again, I'm sure a lot of you who have OCD can relate to those feelings. And then when I got back, so my mom's a nurse, and my mom, as much as she didn't know anything about OCD, she knew what I was experiencing was some kind of mental health issue, and she kept telling me, you're experiencing some kind of mental health problem, etc. And the more research we all did on it, the more we kind of all thought, yeah, this is what you're experiencing. You're experiencing OCD. I then went to the doctor and I started medication. A medication is a choice for everybody. It's a choice that I made, and I'm so glad I did, because personally I don't think I would have been able to start therapy and focus on therapy without the medication. Medication is what helped me be able to eat, to sleep, to basically function as a kind of human. But medication doesn't cure OCD. There is no medication out there that I am aware of that can cure OCD. What you can do is have medication for like anxiety and depression, which come with OCD, and it kind of dampens that down a little bit, so you're at a place you can function a lot better. Because at the time I was 1,000% depressed, and anxiety isn't even a word to cover it. It was through the roof, my anxiety. So yeah, I went to the medication. I went to the doctor and told them about, I need medication. I believe what I'm experiencing is OCD. They gave me medication and they put me in touch with like a NHS therapy waiting list. But I could tell very quickly that they didn't have the greatest knowledge of OCD. Even the people I was speaking to on the phone about starting therapy and stuff like that, I could tell they didn't have the greatest knowledge. And there was also a bit of a waiting list. I think if I remember right, they offered me like an online CBT course to start with while I was waiting. But I was like desperate. I don't know. I didn't even know how I would survive the next 10 minutes. Like, I was desperate for anything. So that's when I looked at getting a private therapist. I went online and I remember speaking to a few private therapists and they did not have a clue about OCD. And I say that with the greatest respect. They could have been great at helping someone with depression or solely depression, should I say, or great at helping somebody with like trauma or some kind of relationship issue or something like that. They would have been great at that maybe, but they didn't understand OCD in the slightest. And they might have thought that they did, but they really didn't. And I can't stress how important it is to have a therapist that understands OCD like the back of their hand. It's so important because doing the wrong type of therapy, like talk therapy, can just make OCD even worse. So yeah, I spoke to a couple of different therapists and I knew I wasn't really getting anywhere. And ultimately I ended up having therapy at one point and also OCD coaching at one point from two different companies, and I'll say the companies. One of the therapy that I had for a bit was through NOCD. They're called Treat My OCD on Instagram, and the OCD coaching I had was through OCDrecovery.com. And it was only then that I really started to make a recovery. But when I say that, I don't mean within weeks. I mean it's taken 4 years for me to get to this point. It's a long journey, OCD recovery. It probably took like a year to see a smidgen of improvement. It's a lot of setbacks. It's a lot of relapses. It's a lot of pain. It's a lot of pushing yourself. But it is ultimately worth it. OCD recovery takes medication potentially. It takes ERP, which is very, very important for recovery. So that ERP stands for exposure and response prevention, which ultimately means exposing yourself to your fears of whatever OCD is telling you without doing compulsions to follow that up. And on top of ERP, we also need to do acceptance work. And I did a lot of acceptance work. That was with, particularly with OCDrecovery.com. I did so much acceptance work with them, and that really, really helped. It helped me it's not even just like an OCD way it helped me. It helps you with your whole perspective on life. And these three things, ERP, acceptance, medication, and going out there and living my life no matter how I felt. Because with OCD, you're going to feel horrendous and you can't wait until you feel better to start living your life, because first of all, it's not going to happen. If you waited until you felt better to live your life, you'd be waiting for a hell of a long time. but also you have to prove to yourself that you can still live life even feeling this way. And I don't say that lightly because I know how OCD can make you feel. It makes you feel it's like hell on earth. It literally is like hell on earth. But you can withstand hell on earth. I did withstand hell on earth, so I know that we can do it. And you have to just go out there and live your life anyway, even if you feel absolutely horrendous doing so. And I think that's also a really big part of recovery. So that is kind of what I did for a few years. I just focused on my recovery. Everything else in my life was secondary. Money, finances, job, everything else. Nothing else mattered, because with OCD, you don't have the rest of your life. If that's not sorted, the rest of your life, as much as you can still do it, because I don't want to say you can't, because it's really important that you do, but the rest of your life isn't as fulfilling when OCD is there. So it became my main priority. And yeah, I kind of worked on that for, well, I still am, very much so. It still is a massive part of my day. But I worked on that for about 3 years, and then I started my Instagram recovery page about a year ago now, which was Navigating OCD, and I started sharing on there just some of my experiences with OCD, because I think there is actually, I don't even need to tell you this, but there is so much misinformation out there. If I thought OCD was its stereotype, I would never know that I had it. It is so misused, the term OCD, and I try not to let things get to me, because it's just, I know people don't mean it when they use it out of term, and it's nothing personal. It's people just don't understand, and that's okay. So I try not to let it get to me, but at the same time, the more it's misused, the more people are going to die from it. And I know that doesn't sound very nice, but it's true. Yeah, the more that people don't understand what it is and think that it's maybe just about cleaning or germs, and I'm not saying that cannot be a subtype, because it can, very much so, for some people, but for a lot of people with OCD, it's absolutely nothing to do with that. For me, it is nothing to do with that. I might have tiny little things in my life that OCD latches to, like germy things, but it's literally probably 0.2% of my OCD. So yeah, that was kind of like why I started my page, and I just started sharing information, and I got in, so many of you followed along, and I've spoke to so many of you over there, and it's been probably the most amazing part of my journey. It's been something that I never thought I'd say this, but has almost made OCD worth it. Being able to share my journey and share it with others, and as much as it is horrible, I've learned so much from the experience, and being able to share it over there and now on here makes it kind of worthwhile. No, it does make it worthwhile, as much as it's painful, it does. So yeah, I think that's gonna be my first episode today. I think I'm just gonna keep it here. I've kind of gave a very quick, short summary of my OCD journey. I can and will go into so much more detail on the upcoming episodes, but I thought this is probably the best place to start. And maybe next episode I've kind of talked today about my journey. Maybe next episode I'll just talk about what OCD is, and what it isn't. I know that's very basic, but I think it needs to kind of be stated because it's got such a misconception out there. Just stating what it is and what it isn't. That's maybe what I'll talk about next. But I've also got lots of other ideas from upcoming episodes. So I want to talk about OCD and hormones because that's been a huge part of my journey that I didn't touch on that today. But it's been a big part of that, and I actually was taking medication for a while to help with that. So that's been a big part of my journey. Different OCD subtypes. Yeah, I even thought about having my partner on the podcast to maybe do episodes on how OCD has affected him, being a partner of someone experiencing it, or even family members, or even some of you guys. Yes, I've got lots of different ideas for upcoming episodes. But that's it for today. If you want to follow me on Instagram, it's at navigating. Is it navigating.ocd or navigating OCD? Let me just check. It's navigating.ocd. So you can follow me along on there, and I'm going to do episodes once a week. I'm yet to decide which day I'm going to be putting them out, but I'll let you guys know. And yeah, I'm going to also put a question box on my Instagram for upcoming podcast ideas. So I know I've talked about a few ideas, but you guys can give me some more ideas as well of what you'd like me to talk about.